They say the moon remembers every king who ever tried to tame it, but one night it chose its own. At Whispering Narratives, we don't just tell stories, we awaken the ones history buried. If you hear the howls tonight, remember, not all kings wore crowns of gold, some wore silver and teeth. Before Camelot, before the knights, there was a king chosen not by God, but by the moon. They called him Arthur, but the wolves called him Father. His sword was forged in starlight. His crown was paid in blood, and the legend you know, it was rewritten by those who feared the howl. This is the true story of the Werewolf of Avalon, rise of the Moon King. The moon over ancient Britain was not the pale lantern we know now. It was a red monarch, swollen and alive, hanging above Avalon's mist, like a watching god. The age of men was crumbling, and the age of beasts was stirring beneath its skin. They say the first king was chosen by the sword, a blade pulled from stone by divine right. But those who whisper the older stories tell of a curse that came first. A pact sealed in the forest of Dinas Emrys, where blood met silver, and the line of kings was forever bound to the moon. Arthur Pendrath, last of the Lunar Kings, rode into battle not just with men, but with his pack. 12 knights, 12 beasts, each sworn under the round moon, bound by fang and oath to protect a realm that no longer feared dragons, only themselves. When the light breaks, men will call us monsters, Arthur once said. But until it does, we are their guardians, unseen, unsung, and unholy. The Lady of the Lake, the mythic giver of Excalibur, was no goddess. She was the Moon Mother, a priestess of the Silver Veil, who offered him the blade as both crown and curse. Excalibur was forged from a meteorite of pure lunar silver, a weapon that burned in the hands of any man not chosen by the curse. It shone brightest when blood hit its edge and dimmed when mercy dared enter the king's heart. On the eve of Camelot's fall, Arthur stood before that very lake. His reflection was not that of a man, but a creature, silver eyes split by sorrow, his crown glinting faintly beneath the rising red moon. He was the last of his kind, the Moon King, burdened by the knowledge that his kingdom's greatness had come at the cost of its soul. In the forest behind him the knights howled, Gawain, whose fur shimmered gold, Lancel, whose claws bore runes of protection, Galahad, whose howl could shatter bone. Each bore the mark of the Moon Pact, the sigil of Avalon's secret order, the Silver Circle. But one howl rose higher than the rest. Young Mordred, his own son by the cursed Queen Morgana, born of moonlight and deceit. His cry was not of loyalty, it was of challenge. The son had inherited the curse without the crown, and he meant to claim both. The lake's reflection rippled as a drop of blood fell, not from a wound, but from the king's trembling hand. The lady's voice whispered through the water. A kingdom divided cannot howl as one. And thus the fall of Camelot began, not by steel but by silvered fang. They will tell you Arthur died a man, but that's not true. On the last night of Camelot, the king became the moon's beast, and the legend of Avalon began to bleed. When men spoke of Camelot, they spoke of banners, feasts, and shining armor. But beneath that gilded illusion was a darker court, one that met not in the Hall of Kings, but in the moon chamber beneath the castle itself. A circle of stone, 12 wolf heads carved around its edge, each mouth open in perpetual howl. The table that legend calls round was never meant for dining, it was for binding. The ritual began as the moon reached its zenith. Arthur stood in the center, bare-chested, his skin traced with sigils of silver and ash. At his feet lay Excalibur, glowing faintly, humming with the pulse of the moon itself. "Tonight we renew the bond," Arthur declared. "Not for glory, not for gold, but for the pack that guards the dark." Lancel knelt first, for the king. Gawain followed, for the moon. One by one they came forward. Blood dripped into the stone grooves that ran from each seat toward the center, feeding the circle like veins. When the blade touched blood, the air cracked with energy, and the transformation began. Flesh split, bones realigned, armor bent, and tore. 12 men became 12 beasts, and at the center, the King of Avalon roared, his crown falling from his head as fur erupted from his skin. It was not savagery, it was sovereignty. Their howls merged into a single echo that reached beyond the mortal realm, calling out to the Moon Mother across the lake. She answered with mist and whisper, and for one heartbeat Avalon itself seemed alive. "When they howl as one," she said, "even the gods will listen." But the transformation carried a price. Each night lost a part of their humanity, a memory, a mercy, a fragment of their soul. By dawn, none could recall the faces of those they'd once loved. Only the bond remained. For years the Silver Circle hunted the horrors that men could not face, the skin-eaters of the north, the serpent of Dinah's Maw, the hollow children of the mist. Their claws became the kingdom's silent shield. They killed, not for sport but for balance. But envy festers even among wolves. Lancel began to doubt Arthur's restraint. "Your heart grows soft," he warned. "The moon favors the ruthless, not the merciful." Arthur looked toward the red horizon. A king must bear both, or he bears nothing at all. Then came the dreaming moon, when the boundary between beast and man dissolves completely. "Only the truest of kings may keep his reason when the dream descends," said the Moon Mother. That night, the Silver Circle gathered again, their last hunt. Mordred hid among the shadows. He whispered a curse learned from his mother. "Let the king's mercy be his undoing." When dawn came, the chamber was silent. The knights awoke, drenched in blood, not of their enemies, but their own. One seat was shattered. The king's crown lay at the center, split in two. From that day forth, the Silver Circle no longer howled as one. They tell the gentle version in tapestries. A maiden in a lake, a king kneeling in gratitude, a queen radiant beside him. But water remembers what cloth forgets. The Lady of the Lake was no spirit of mercy. She was Moira and Gielach, the Moon Mother, last priestess of the Silver Veil. Her covenant was older than Rome, older than stone. When the moon bled, a chosen line would bleed with it to keep the balance. Arthur came to her as a wounded soldier. He bled into the reeds, and the water turned quicksilver where it touched. The lake rose in a ring of mist, and Moira stood upon it. "Your war is not with men," she said. "It is with the hunger that rises when kingdoms forget the dark. Give me a sword," he said, "and I will end the hunger." No sword ends hunger, but one can hold it. She lifted Excalibur, meteor silver, tempered in night water, bound with a vow no parchment could hold. The vow needed blood, it needed a line. Morgana, priest sister of the same veil, learned how to bend oaths. She found Arthur, saw his dream of justice, and loved it too fiercely. She kissed him with a curse hidden in the heat. "What you clutch will clutch you back." Moira saw and wove a warning into his sleep. A crown split, a wolf nursing a child who bit the milk into blood. The child came in a year of red tides, Mordred, born with needle pupils that widened to coins. The father trembled. Somewhere under his ribs, the wolf counted this new pulse: father, son, rival. Moira blessed the infant. The skin hissed. "The line is strong," she said. Morgana smiled. "I taught the chain to bite its master." So began the Moon Mother's curse. 3 clauses: crown of fur, sword of dimming, heir of opposition. Every act of mercy would dull the blade. Every heir would try to end the curse and become its weapon. Arthur's hunts saved the realm, but mercy cooled Excalibur's glow. Lancel mistook it for weakness. Morgana saw her design ripen. Mordred listened to 2 heartbeats and smiled. Morgana tried to undo it, but Moira told her, "Contracts with the moon do not end." They conclude, "Every story is a loop or a debt." Morgana decided, if the chain cannot be cut, cut the throat that feeds it. Arthur gathered his knights. "We are wolves who tried to be men," he said. "Now we must choose which we save." The hunger had learned their names. The lake shone that night as if it too wore a crown. On its surface, 3 reflections moved where 2 figures stood. King, queen, and something taller than both. The Moon Mother whispered, "A kingdom is a beast with many heads. You may cut one. It grows back. Or you may teach it to sing." "Then, let it sing," Arthur said. The contract had entered its final clause. The moon hung like an unblinking eye. It saw the kingdom rot from within. Farmers whispered. The silver circle argued. Lancel paced the moon chamber. "We were meant to guard them. Now they hide their children when they hear us coming." Arthur sat in shadow, Excalibur dull as pewter. "Fear is the price of safety." "Fear is the symptom of tyranny," Lancel snapped. That was the night the circle fractured. Hunts turned to purges. Arthur ordered restraint. The wolves smelled weakness. In the courtyard, Lancel led half the circle to slay a feral family. Arthur arrived first. "No more. The curse is ours, not theirs." The sword dimmed further. The Moon Mother whispered, "Mercy cools the forge." Lancel struck to prove him weak. Steel met silver. The blade burned Arthur's hand. "You see?" Lancel shouted. "Even the blade knows." "It knows I've remembered how to be human," Arthur said. He left Excalibur in stone. Mordred watched. 2 kings, he whispered, and only 1 throne. Each act of mercy multiplied the curse. Each act of cruelty deepened it. Mordred stood between, the air of annihilation. Arthur gathered the remnant of his knights. "We are wolves who tried to be men. We will die trying." The last hunt began. They called it the season of still blood. Rivers froze with moonlight. The feral bloodlines rose again. Arthur called the hunt. Only 5 knights answered. They rode from Camelot at dusk, armor black, moon red. "If this be our end," said Gawain, "let the night remember." "The night already knows," said Arthur. They reached the plain of Lanwydden. The ferals waited, 100 strong, old knights twisted and hungry. Arthur planted Excalibur. The realm needs keepers, not kings. They transformed together, Gawain gold, Lancel black, Arthur vast and white. They struck the horde like thunder. Each kill freed a soul. Each mercy dimmed the blade. Lancel shouted, "The sword is dying," and leave nothing worth saving. Arthur roared. From the mist came the first feral, a wolf with a human skull for a face, the hunger-given body. Arthur faced it alone. "This is what mercy made of me," he said. "So be it." He plunged Excalibur into his own chest. The world burned white. The ferals dissolved into memory. Only Arthur remained, breathing. "You broke the circle," Lancel whispered. "No, I just fed it what it wanted most." "What was that?" "Its king." The ground swallowed the blade. The moon steadied, smaller, gentler. Gawain's fur lay like light. Bedivere's helm rested on stone. Lancel carved a line above the grave. "Here lies the last man who tried to outlove the moon." Night swallowed the battlefield. The plain looked like a cathedral abandoned by its god. Arthur staggered to the lake, body half man, half wolf. Blood dripped bright as mercury. Mist rose, Moira's face within. "So you return what was borrowed," she said. "And what was stolen," he answered. "Do you regret it, King of Wolves? Only that mercy costs more than cruelty. Then you've learned creation's rule. Everything that endures must devour itself." He set Excalibur upon the water. It floated. The light rose beneath. Lancel approached. "You can't leave them leaderless. Then lead them better." "I'm no king." Exactly. What will history call you? A myth, if they're kind, a monster if they're wise. He stepped into the lake, water folded around him, the crown dissolved to silver dust. Morgana's spirit whispered, "The hunger sleeps." Arthur's last words, "Keep it dreaming." By dawn the lake was still. A white tree grew where Lancel's blood touched the ground. He forged a new blade from melted armor and called it Mercy Fang. Centuries blurred. The Wolf King became a bedtime prayer. Yet when the moon turns red, fishermen hear a howl across Wales. The Moon King still rides. Centuries passed, empires renamed the land. Yet every 13th red moon, something stirred. Modern Britain calls it folklore, the Wolf King of Avalon. But beneath the noise, the old blood hums. A geneticist in Cardiff finds nocturnal DNA clusters tied to Somerset. Subjects dream of a silver lake and a voice saying, "Guard the mercy." A folklorist live streams from Tintagel. Carvings of wolf knights appear overnight. The feed cuts after a flash of glowing eyes. In a London subway, a busker plays a tune. No one taught him. For one heartbeat, the lights flicker silver. The howl travels through electricity now. Mira Lanford, investigative journalist, sees her reflection change during a lunar eclipse at Avalon's drained lake. The reflection is a crowned wolf. Phones record 13 seconds of audio that slowed. Whisper. Every legend ends in silence. Don't let this one. She follows coordinates to a condemned manor. Relics wait, silver armor, a hilt in stone, a carved sigil, 12 wolves around a broken crown. The Echo Crown. The mark burns into her palm as every hound in Britain howls. She streams live. Mist fills the frame. A figure steps through, white-furred, eyes weary. "You kept the mercy," it says. "Now keep the memory." Moira's voice echoes, "When myths sleep too long, they rot." Wake the howl. The stream cuts. Comments explode. Echo Crown trends worldwide. Soon wolves are sighted again. A silver-eyed child appears near the Severn. Patients' heartbeats sync with the full moon. Governments say nothing. The church holds vigil. The moon turns pure white. Beneath Avalon, Excalibur shifts. A single bubble rises. A regal growl hums through the deep. So remember this when the sky goes pale and your dog tilts its head toward nothing. Mercy is policy. Every crown rusts in blood, but not all blood is wasted. Maybe Arthur never died. Maybe the lake changed mediums, from water to signal, from myth to memory. Maybe every story told in moonlight is him, reaching out, testing if the world still deserves dawn. And maybe you carry a fraction of that pact in your pulse, the urge to protect even when it hurts, the instinct to forgive even when the pack calls you weak. That is the Wolf the Moon King left behind. At Whispering Narratives, we don't just tell stories, we keep the doors honest. If you made it through this one, subscribe before the next full moon. Share it with the one friend you'd stand beside. When the pack comes running, some debts are paid in courage, some are paid in clicks. Yours pay both. The wind rises, the howl returns. Silence follows.